You guys are gonna fight me for this, but this is my honest opinion. Fight me in the comments, but honestly, the most influential album, at least for me as a pop stan in the late 2000s, is this one right here. Yes, it's the Black Eyed Peas, The Energy Never Dies. Now, this is a Target Deluxe Edition. I ran out to Target June 2009, like almost 11 years ago, to grab this album with my dad. And I still have every single memory from that day burned in the back of my mind because this record slaps so hard. Okay, so before this album came out, the Black Eyed Peas were a relatively well-known and moderately successful group. Like, they made music that... One thing that I didn't know about the Black Eyed Peas is that they've been running since the 90s. Like, they've been around forever. Like, will.i.am is ancient. For those of you who don't know who the members of the Black Eyed Peas are, like, the members are pretty simple. will.i.am, Apple Diap, Fergie, and Taboo. Three of them have been around since the band's inception, like the three guys, but Fergie was a relatively later addition who ended up sticking around after Elephunk and Monkey Business. will.i.am and Fergie are the two most popular members from the band for many reasons, and to understand where the end began, we have to go back to the two albums that will.i.am and Fergie put out in 2006 and 2007. Fergie released The Duchess, which ended up being an iconic album, 5 top 10 hits, 3 of which went #1, and she held the record for the most multi-platinum singles off a single record until Katy Perry broke it with the Teenage Dream era. will.i.am's songs about girls did not fare as well. It didn't even hit the top 10 when it charted. None of its tracks really found traction, and he kind of had his ego bruised, which was, in my opinion, why the Black Eyed Peas came back. It must have been kind of disappointing to be a Fergie stan and find out that she's just returning to the band again, but what they delivered ended up being such a success that I feel like they just never came back. Let's just talk about how monumental this album was. The first two singles, Boom Boom Pow and I Got a Feeling, literally topped the charts consecutively for 26 whole weeks. The Black Eyed Peas became one of the first acts in history to really just replace themselves. Like the first act since the Beatles, I believe, which is an insane achievement that would only be followed by Ariana Grande with 7 rings. In addition to that, they won 3 Grammys, had 5 top 10 hits in total, 3 of which went #1, and a killer tour that literally spanned the entire world. The world was theirs. And yes, while they didn't invent or pioneer their sound, they definitely dominated the pop conversation, spawning many people to kind of jack their style. And the boom of dance music from the late 2000s to the early 2010s, I think, honestly, it's their achievement. It's their crowning achievement, and it's on them. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 2 really big components that I think they definitely owed for their success. Now, I think we all know what autotune is, how it sounds like, how it can modulate voices, how it can change the way artists sound. I really hate when people say that if you use autotune, you probably can't sing or you don't have any talent. It actually takes talent to mix and properly apply autotune. You need to have musical talent to register a note. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate how hard it is to actually use autotune. Of course, I don't have professional tools, I don't have a professional mic or a studio, so that puts me at a disadvantage already, but I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night, tonight's gonna be... I can't do this, guys. Okay, so, yeah, that was terrible, guys. That was horrible. I couldn't keep a straight face. That was bad. And, that was with extreme settings on. See, that was so much better. That's the one that we like. That's the final version. Of course, there was more mixing, audio, and whatever, but it's obvious that the P's have some sort of talent. Like, will.i.am can sing despite him saying he can't. Fergie can definitely sing, though sometimes she does not do a good job. Everybody has their rough days, and I forgot to talk about Apple and Taboo. They have flow, they sound good, they know how to write verses, let's be honest here. And honestly, before some of y'all misinterpret me and say that the Black Eyed Peas invented autotune and comment and spam believe by share, I'm just saying that they led to a modern reinvention of the sound. A lot of artists that we know and love who would emerge in that time period, most notably Kesha, actually, I can imagine that the Black Eyed Peas invented this sort of environment where people felt more comfortable to use those tools because those songs were charting. And we kind of owe them that to some extent for creating that atmosphere where we could like create bangers from nothing and they sounded robotic and dumb and fun. Okay, so just speaking on behalf of my generation, I think a lot of people my age discovered autotune and electric music via the Black Eyed Peas or whatever derivative music came from that time period. So that's what I'm hinting at, essentially. Fun fact, will.i.am and Charlie XCX collabed on a few tracks that ended up being shelved. I imagine they were for XCX World because the interviews came out in 2017. will.i.am gave her very important advice that luckily she never took. He said, the verse. No one ever listens to the verse. Just say a bunch of random words. You know, that philosophy is like weird and I totally get it. Like a lot of people are chorus verse people. Like the verse could literally make no sense, but I definitely love verses. So will.i.am, like, bad advice. Luckily, Charlie actually delivers some really good verses. But like aside from that, I think that's really cool that my queen of hooks interacted with the then king of hooks. But anyway, back to the Black Eyed Peas. I just know that they just had a way of using autotune to really blend in with the instrumental. There's this song on the record, the second track. It's super cheesy. It's called Rock That Body. And honestly, Fergie sounds like a chipmunk on this track. And it's supposed to be off-putting and abrasive and silly and just like a total disaster trash fire of a sample or like whatever it's supposed to be. And like I just can't get enough of that song. It works for me. Just a quick aside, I really kind of dig the retro futuristic looks that they had. Like, I know it's like cheesy and it didn't age well or anything, but honestly, like one thing I really did like about the E.N.D era is that they were forward thinking. They wanted to really try to embody what they thought the future of music would look like at the time. And they did get some things right, which was pretty cool. They were interactive. They really wanted their fans to think of them as forward-thinking innovators, and to an extent, I think they were. One of the other ways I thought the Black Eyed Peas really did move forward the music industry at the time is that they really popularized sampling. Well, I know everybody's been sampling since the beginning of time because let's be honest, nothing's original anymore. Everything is some kind of derivative thing. There are a lot of lawsuits coming out because bass lines sound way too similar to ancient bass lines and people want their money. And sampling is just a respectful way of like crediting whoever you borrowed from and not plagiarizing. In many ways, it's just saying, my bad, I'm sorry I borrowed this chord progression, but I wanted to make something new with it. I wanted to innovate with it. I wanted to take something familiar and bring it back, which ties into the album's themes. The album is called The Energy Never Dies. It is named after one of the laws of thermodynamics. Don't look at me, I'm not a scientist. I never finished any of my science majors. But the energy never dies, being old music, old sounds, old aesthetics, being reblended and transformed into something new. I thought that was an interesting thesis statement from the record. And also that cover freaks me out because it's all four of their faces. There is a lot of sampling on this record. The guitar riff in Meet Me Halfway is actually from Maps by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Rock That Body is essentially an interpolated version of It Takes Two. And I Got a Feeling's Woohoo is from Every Breath You Take by the Police. That's pretty much shocking to me because I never knew that. Okay, so while many people really adore the singles to death, like I cannot get enough about Boom Boom Pow. I think it's one of the most obnoxious, annoying, but hella catchy songs of all time, in addition to I Got a Feeling, and I love the switch up on I'm a Bee. I think there's a lot of deep cuts on the album that really don't get any credit. And I just wanted to talk about them very briefly. There is a song called Party All the Time. I became familiar with it because someone on the Glee Wikipedia, yes, I used to be a Gleek back in the way back when days. I'm old. There was a rumor that it was going to be one of the songs on the show, so I listened to it a couple of times and I liked it. And there was Missing You, which was so big in France that it became its own single there. And let's never forget about the most wokest song I've heard in my life. It is so woke, it makes Witness sound unwoke. It's called One Tribe, and there's this really really spooky video on YouTube made from like 2009 or 2010, and I can't talk about it. Like I'm just gonna show you a clip. If I had an enemy, if I had an enemy, if I had an enemy, could come kill me, one tribe, yo. Whoa! For all the good that this album did for pop, I do believe that this album also created this weird culture in the timeline that really was a backlash response to auto-tuned music and just dance music in general. Like there was this period of time where people started, well, older listeners in my opinion, started clinging to more acoustic sounding artists, more indie sounding artists. Like Adele's 21 definitely had its success because of her talent. I'm not trying to say it's the Black Eyed Peas' fault that she became big, but there is something interesting to be said about like how 21 as an album just suddenly became popular, and it was the antithesis of this type of music, and it stayed on top for so long. Likewise, sometime around 2012, 2013, I think you all recall that there was a period of time that pseudo indie music had taken over the airwaves. Everybody wanted something that sounded more acoustic or hipstery or indie, and slowly and surely, dance music started to disappear from the charts a little bit. Like people got bored of it. And that oversaturation did affect the Black Eyed Peas. The Black Eyed Peas did do a follow-up to this record. It's called The Beginning. There were only 2 top 10 hits from this entire record. The third single literally didn't even chart in the top 40. And it wasn't as good as the end. They couldn't recapture the magic. It was even more electric, and there were daring songs on the record that I still listen to and interesting samples, but it just proved that maybe it was a flash in the pan. The end era was maybe just them getting really lucky and being ahead of the trend. After The Beginning, they ended up splitting their separate ways. will.i.am went on to record a moderately successful solo record buoyed by really good singles with amazing features on it. Like, can we not forget how amazing Scream and Shout was? Fergie would go on to leave the group forever and release Double Dutchess almost 10 years after her original album. It underperformed, obviously, because her time had came and went. I think she kind of regrets rejoining the Peas in some way or form, because I really do believe that a second Fergie album that would have come out around the time The End came out would have smashed. But she waited too long, and part of that waiting came from coming back to the band. The other 2 members went on to do their own solo successful stuff, and the band sans Fergie came back, and they still release music that charts. Like, I think Ritmo hit 23. I don't know what to really think about The End. I don't know if it's nostalgia speaking or just me really missing the times that this album came out. But it has a meaningful place in my heart as a record. There's so much to like about it. It was the first time I actually started standing someone. I joined ATRL shortly after the album dropped to keep up with rumors, to listen to demos and leaks. I was a Peabody. They were my first stand-em, and I owe them that. Now I listen to Charlie XCX, who in many ways is somewhat of a spiritual successor, but she gets artistic merit for it because she's not commercial these days. And the Black Eyed Peas, I think they were trying to be artistic here. They were trying to make music that mattered. Like, clearly some of the tracks worked better than other tracks, but they were trying to say something here. And they got muddled by how overplayed or overexposed they got, how cheesy some of their lyrics are, but they did a lot of good in this record. And I just wanted to make this video to really honor this record and talk about aspects I really liked, and also to post video of me singing I Got a Feeling on the internet forever. That's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Once again, like, subscribe, comment what your favorite track off the record was. I didn't really talk much about the singles. I just wanted to talk more about the psychology behind the album. My Witness video is still coming out on time. Don't worry, guys. It's coming, and it'll be a doozy. I just wanted to get this out of the way to sort of pay homage and really experiment and see where my content could go. I hope you guys like the new format, and I will see you guys very soon.